Rain
And
sounds?
we are live. The train sounds are done. The train sounds happen. What's up, everyone? Welcome
All
back
right.
to the
Awesome.
Trainman Report. We got a special guest here. I want to get criticized for saying the name wrong. So, Joel, can you just introduce yourself?
Please.
Joel Ceausu.
Ciao Shu. I got
Ciao
it.
Chu.
My
Okay.
name's Holden
Ciao Chu.
Stephan Roy. I tried.
Alex
I'm not.
Montagano. Oh, sorry
There we
there,
go.
Holden.
No, we
I
good.
interrupted
Glad you
you.
said it there because I said it wrong and had to delete a whole Instagram story before because I knew I said it wrong and I did not say it correctly. And I'm pretty damn awful with names sometimes, so I apologize in advance to everyone. But welcome back to the Trainman Report, where Alex, the guy who reads all this stuff, breaks down the observations he has for us as we get into our local politics life over here, trying to expand upon other English platforms that exist in the area, pushing it forth in a maybe more podcast styled conversational format. I know that we have Joel here with us, and I think we wanted to start off talking about you a little bit as our special guest on the show today. So can you just
Learn a little
go
bit
ahead,
about
Alex?
you, Joel, because I know you as a journalist for the Suburban. You're the local beat reporter, one of the only one I believe NEG has. And I think Holden, it would be appropriate for us to give Joel thanks for being that person that he is and reporting on local news.
Absolutely.
And but I really don't know your history very well. So tell us who Joel is.
Oh, I like long walks in the rain. Well, who am I? I'm Laval born and raised,
Mm-hmm.
and got out just when the going was good, and went to J school after a decade of meandering through meaningless jobs and trying to find myself. And I found myself writing a lot and wanting to get paid for it, and then embarked upon a career of freelancing for trade magazines, which I did and was quite a lucrative gig for about a decade until that all started to fall apart. And was contributing as a stringer to some European publications and some North American magazines and newspapers, and then finally hooked up with the Suburban, who at the time, this is going back about 13, 14 years, they were looking for someone to head up their renewed initiative in the East End to produce an East End paper, and they needed somebody.
Interesting.
Well, the
Mm.
term is our publisher and our editor. We're all Jewish, and the term is sechel, which means brains. And they were looking for someone with sechel who could speak Italian, and that was me.
You
So I
speak
ended up,
Italian?
yeah, I
Oh,
do.
it's not a surprise.
So I did about 4 years, 5 years of that in the East End, covering Saint Leonard and Anjou and Montreal North and Saint Michel and so forth, around the time of the Freddie Villanueva
Right.
riots and all that.
Troubling times. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the earthquake in Haiti, and I was out there covering that in Saint Michel, Montreal North. That was something. And then they shipped me over to Laval. They moved the whole edition over to Laval, which was kind of painful because once I left Laval, I kind of swore I'd never go back except for doctor's appointments and Savlakis. But
There's
I went.
something in the water in Laval. I think.
Yeah, I kind of put it there, so I don't want to go back. Stayed there for a couple of years until they wrapped that up and sent me. They said, we need you in the city, and they brought me back to the city. And I'm very happy to be covering Côte-de-Neige NDG again. I did so years ago when I was covering the East End. I was also living in this area, so I was covering it around the time when Russell Copeman was elected.
As
Um,
Wow.
borough mayor.
yes, as borough mayor.
Okay. Now that makes
Um,
sense to me because I was kind of absent from the municipal scene during the Copeland
Right. That was a
administration.
time when, when the council was quite lively, and Jeremy Searle was there in Loyola, and there was
Right, right.
a lot to talk about. And then moving forward, and they after Laval came back, and now Côte-de-Neige NDG is my beat, and I'm happy to have it. It's not the only thing
Fantastic.
I do, but it's quite gratifying, as I'm always telling my colleagues. Um, Côte-de-Neige NDG, specifically NDG, has a larger Anglophone population than Côte Saint Luc, Hampstead, Mo West, and I think Westmount combined, perhaps. So,
It's the biggest Anglophone community in Quebec.
and there's
Yeah,
so much to talk about.
there
Not
is.
everything I want to write, I get to write, but not everything I write gets in either. But I do my best.
And you do a very good job. And I remember, if I could just talk of one thing, I remember Joel did a report on the Auditor General's report, and I was just um, shocked. I guess is the
On the
word.
municipal report,
Yeah, it was the auditor. No, Auditor General. She talked about tree pruning services.
Oh,
Remember that one? And I was like, wow, there's still a journalist out there that reads these reports
but
and
it's there.
and gives
It's
us
a
a
big
synopsis.
honking, colorful PDF.
It's all there, Joel, but nobody. Hey, I don't know very many journalists, in all sincerity. And if you're out there, God bless your soul. But and you're one of them, who actually reads these reports.
Well, I
And
don't have a life. So.
well, I can't really talk to that, Joel. Maybe you should get into trains.
Seems like you don't have one either.
That's true. All right, so that's great. So the next Holden, can we just dive into the next segment there on the municipal tax piece and race ahead?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
We could talk about that.
And Joel can also talk to that piece as well, because the city, I don't know, has that process been completed? Has the city voted for the 2024 budget? Has it passed completely at all levels, both the borough? I know the borough.
It's coming up.
Yeah. Okay. So, what we've seen in the city of Montreal, and what we did last week there, Holden, is we did a little exercise on municipal taxes and how they impact renters. Because one of the things that gets lost in the taxation conversation is that, in fact, renters pay a municipal taxes through their rent. So we went through an exercise where we saw your building where you lived, Holden. Again, we won't tell people where you live. Increase in evaluation by $3 million.
It's not the biggest secret.
Oh, where I live is not a big secret either, so it's all good. And you know what? It doesn't bother me, because I know people in NG are kind-hearted and generally very polite and respectful, so I don't have an issue with that.
Sometimes I wish I went back in time and didn't tell everyone where I lived, but now people know where I live.
So on that note, your taxes on your building went up 7%. So from like $47,000 to $50,000, a $3,000 increase, which represents to you, for Holden, the renter, $67.35 increase per year, which translated into a $5.61 increase per month. And
hold on, you mean his portion as a tenant?
Exactly.
One unit in that building.
Exactly. And so in total, for the year, Holden is paying $1,048.99 per year in municipal taxes. That's if we take the 48 apartment units and split them down, equally, right? Obviously, some tenants are paying more rent than other rents and tenants, but I don't know that information, so I have to do that. That's a kind of how do you say, assumption of this calculation. So the city of Montreal released its budget, and it stated that the average, and CDNEG was one of the highest boroughs in terms of tax increases. The reason for that is because the evaluations in CDNEG went through the roof, like on average 40%. So it was crazy increases in the estimated property value of our homes. So it went up 5.5%. But your taxes, Holden, went up by 7, and you're asking me, why is it the average is 5.5 but my building's 7? Is because the 5.5 do not calculate or account for borough taxes. So borough taxes are much higher. Average borough taxes for services are up 9.5%. So that jacks everything up. And a lot of people don't realize that we have like two sets of taxes. We have a set of taxes we pay downtown, and then we have this other set of taxes that we pay to our borough. So I thought that was an interesting exercise. And the most important, I think, question that was raised, and I'll end on that, on the last podcast, is a question that Holden asked. And Holden, can you please repeat that question? Because I think that's a
It
really
was
awesome
something
question.
to the effect of, all right, so basically, what's the split of taxes paid by renters versus homeowners, and like ultimately, who is contributing more in NDG? So who is getting the shittier end of the stick, or whatever like that? Because like I could like, because it kind of ties into my views on how politicians canvass us and how they just kind of ignore all the people that don't own homes. Maybe it's too time consuming for buildings. Maybe statistically we don't vote. I don't know all the answers to those questions. But what I can say is, what I learned from Alex is that technically I'm paying all these municipal taxes. And what I can say is it's very clear when you're driving up Cavendish which parts are beautiful and Côte Saint Lucie with the nice lights, and the clear divide when you enter NDG, and all of a sudden the beautification efforts are reserved to that one little park, the one little triangle park on Sherbrooke, and that's like it. And I was just sitting there like, yo, because I've been doing some Uber Eats and stuff around the city now. So for one of the first times ever, I'm actually seeing the various efforts that the different neighborhoods and boroughs are putting into it. Like Monk Street got a lot of effort on it, like over in LaSalle, like, or Villamart or whatever. Like all these various streets look really pretty and really cool. And then you come back to NDG and ain't none of that. Like what they done in Verdun is insane. Verdun looks like a whole reconstruction. So theoretically, do our borough taxes go towards, shouldn't they be paying for some of that? Like, shouldn't some of these efforts be coming from some of that money, in theory?
Right. I think what you bring up an excellent point, if I can, for a second.
Please
Go for
do.
it.
I think it's such a useful exercise for anybody who's interested to actually go and pay attention and observe what's happening in neighboring jurisdictions. Because often what you'll find is people will realize, hey, this doesn't have to be this way. And I got to say for Alex, you've been doing yeoman's work in terms of, going and touring Montreal on your dime, on your clock, on your gas, checking out, comparing garbage cans and urban furniture and stuff like that. And if you do look at neighboring municipalities, I mean, NDG at some point neighbors Hampstead. If you look at how the infrastructure is maintained, I mean, apart from Isabella, notwithstanding Isabella, the infrastructure, how the parks are maintained, how clean the area is, how clean the streets are, it's night and day. Now that's because it's a different tax base, it's a different system, it's a different, maybe perhaps a different contract.
I don't.
But it's also a different set of priorities as determined by that population.
Now,
I don't. Notre Dame de Grâce, you have 170,000 people. That's a lot of opinions to kind of funnel into a plan.
Well, I'm just gonna say this, Joel, what you said, and Holden, what you said is gold. The thing is, what I try to do is, and the reason why I get around is because I'm a contractor, and I do have jobs in Outremont, I have jobs in the town of Mount Royal, and I do go to the plateau in the Sud-Ouest. And what I like to do though is, I don't think it's very fair to the city of Montreal that I do comparisons between, like, say, for Côte Saint Luc and NDG, CDNEG, or Hampstead, because it's a completely different animal. Hampstead doesn't even have any commercial street, right? They all come. Monkland is one of the streets that appeals to the Hampstead community crowd. So what I like to do is I like to do comparisons with Outremont, the Plateau, and Sud-Ouest, and Ville Saint Laurent, and Ville Marie as well. And what is interesting about this conversation, though, is that what you have in the city of Montreal is you have different boroughs which are like acting like governments. They're like separate governments with different tax rates. They have different tax rates for services and infrastructure.
But they are.
And they do. That's what's happening. And the Montreal Charter says that the city has to provide equality of services throughout the city, and that's not happening. So the budget really is in violation. It's illegal.
Are we talking about that Montreal Charter that Joel de Bellefeuille made his whole campaign built around?
On the Walkley property, correct.
Yeah,
exactly. So this charter exists and sets out the perimeters in which the city is supposed to operate. And the city is not even, in my mind, when you look at the numbers, is not following the charter. It's not respecting it. So how do you make an issue out of that? I don't know. So these are all very good questions. But I will end this conversation by saying that when you do the math and you crunch the numbers, and I have done that, what you see by the numbers is that CDNDG gets the smallest per capita budget from the central city because the central city transfers money to us. Don't forget, we're giving all this chunk of change taxes to the city of Montreal. And what they're supposed to do is transfer money back to us for our needs, right? And when you look at that, we get the smallest chunk of change than any other borough in the city of Montreal. And it not only holds true for our services, like everyday needs, like removing garbage, keeping our park clean, and that kind of stuff, but also holds true for infrastructure investments.
Well,
So we're getting screwed on both ends.
You bring up something I'd just like to add that, and Christian Arsenault, the
You can keep
former
adding.
Ottawa councillor, brought this up.
Right.
And he about all the monies that that are paid in lieu of taxes for all the institutions, healthcare, education, religious institutions in Côte-Neige-NDG.
Mhm.
That the money that the Quebec government would give to the municipality goes to the center city with no obligation to come back to the borough, and that should be something that concerns everybody. Because
And you know what?
That's
And you-
enriching the downtown coffers.
Yes.
Some would say to the detriment of local needs.
And you know what, Joel? As you know, I just came back from the Access to Information Court, right? And one of the pieces of information I got was that. I have it.
Oh, okay.
I have the breakdown now per borough for the educational institutions and the health institutions that don't pay tax. They're like exempt, right? So I have that data. And I also have how much money the central city receives in year of those taxes. So I've got that information, and I need to crunch those numbers because I want to do a comparison, get everything on a spreadsheet. So we'll be going to that. So that's great. That was a great conversation.
So hold on. Before we move on, though,
Yeah,
remember, I
yeah.
want to make sure that we don't just sit there and complain about a bunch of stuff and then move on, right? Because that's
Right.
kind of how it normally goes. So, like, we've identified this problem. What do people do about this information, right? Because you get back to me and it's like, all right, so the city is not caring about NDG. What does NDG actually do? Like, how do we actually create some change here? Like, what are like tangible things? Should it be like citizens of NDG go on their TikToks and go film a garbage can comparison of the boroughs? Like, because like personally, that could be effective. It creates hard data of an actual democratic voice of a need and people speaking out. So I want people to know that there are ways you can get involved. Like, that's kind of what I'm doing here is like, okay, what can we do to fix this? Because otherwise it really is just a bunch of us complaining about the same things forever and ever.
Well, listen, you have political recourse, you have legal recourse, and political recourse can encompass everything from showing up at your council or talking to your councillor or running for office or starting a movement to a more guerrilla type approach of doing TikTok, akin to what Jeremy Searle was doing, painting fluorescent paint around potholes to get attention.
They did that on Fielding. They did that on Fielding.
Around potholes.
That's it. That entire penises around potholes on Fielding. That's right. That was hilarious.
I remember
and you know
that.
what? Fielding got paved. It got paved, and I bet you it's
did.
because of that.
Ta-da.
I'm a big fan of this guerrillas. Not encouraging any of you to break the law on but I'm a big fan of that stuff. Shout out Steve Novak in the comments who said you have to go to the meetings and you have to vote so you can get politically involved. And shout out Bonnie for saying there's got to be a little bit of money for holiday decos.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some money. Putting up some Christmas lights can't cost a lot. I know.
Well, you know, that's where SDCs, Société de Développement Commercial, come in. And there was a scrap about it in NDG about creating one for Sherbrooke. And the mayor at the time, she posted on Facebook saying that merchants alone cannot get money to spruce up their street. They need to do it through an SDC. That wasn't enough to sway the argument, but they did create a business association on Queen Mary. And these are the types of things that they typically work towards. Yes, Christmas decorations, all these things. If you'll see in Côte St. Luc, they have beautiful decorations up and down Cavendish. These colored lights all along the poles. They're really,
it's really nice. Gorgeous,
but that costs money.
I liked it.
So where are you going to take the money from?
You want me to answer that question? Well,
but
I remember that whole situation with the creating of the merchants SDC. What is it again? What's the acronym again? There,
SDC.
Yeah, SDC for Sherbrooke, and I think that I think the city did a bad job, or the borough, I should say, at explaining to the merchants of what the benefits of that could be, but more importantly, I think that the merchants, rightfully so, were kind of like, well, it's like the city neglects us, right? And we're not provided a proper and appropriate budget for our needs, and the numbers speak to that. And the merchants saying what you want to do with the SDC, they're basically imposing an additional tax on the merchants along the street to pay for the street improvements. So I kind of feel that the city has got to like pony up some money up front and say, okay, you know what, we're gonna bring all this money to
from
the
what I'm
table.
hearing, before the city's ever going to do that, there has to be some level of community-centric organization between the people that are impacted. Because, like, that's what you said Monkland just did. That's what Côte Saint-Luc did. So there has to be, and I think this is maybe where a lot of the buck stops, is a community-driven approach, which is why you're going to see me forever on this show. I'm going to go back to what we as people can actually do, because it starts with us. So if all of a sudden people started filming stuff like, yo, why does NDG not have this? And we start tagging, the politicians, and go beyond Facebook groups and really go to other places and check it out.
It's a perfectly legitimate approach.
I mean, that's my first idea. Obviously, there's also stuff like, just to foreshadow the future topic, like I've been asked as part of the Pro Bike Path Terrebonne group to bring a bike helmet to the meeting on November 30th to show my support.
We have to talk about that, guys.
Symbolism is very powerful, 100%.
I agree. And so that's another option. And I say that because it really does rely on the people of NDG to get involved in the system in some degree or another, or else nobody's going to take us seriously, because they're like, who cares? And we're not going to react.
And to add to that, Holden, democracy's messy. It's supposed to be messy, right? And it's supposed to be about a conversation. And at the end of the day, though, we have to collectively make decisions, and it's going to be impossible for 100% of the people to be happy 100% of the time with decisions that are being made. But obviously, the hope is that the larger the conversation is, the more people involved with it, the decisions that are made make the most people happy, right?
And I got to say again, you not to get back into the tax discussion, but what I noticed reporting on that meeting, the tone of that discussion, it felt very tense. And you're the only person bringing that up at council. Now, if only one person is bringing something up at council, right or wrong, it's not going to get the kind of push that you'd like to see, Holden. But what was stunning was when Alex Montagano waved. He had a little Norma Ray moment, and he waved the document around, saying, this document says this, and nobody on the table of directors could answer him. And they said, we don't have a copy of the budget. We don't know the document you're referring to. That was a document that was handed out to every citizen that walked into the council meeting. It was the document that was displayed on a huge whiteboard as part of a PowerPoint presentation. That was the document that the borough used to sell its budget to the people.
And I was asking a question about the biggest line item, right? It's the central transfer. We're talking about $59 million.
It's the point of the tone of the conversation.
Right.
So if, it wasn't of great interest to me whether the issue was 1.7% or 2%. The issue to me was nobody had that document. That's the issue to me. And that's what I found stunning. And it would not have been realized unless Alex went there and challenged them on it. That said, ceux qui sont, what's the expression? Ceux qui sont absents ont toujours tort. You don't show up, you're wrong. If you have a beat, you got to speak up. Otherwise, sit the fuck down.
And I guess I'm going to say this to the audience. I don't know how large it is at this point in time, but
we're doing better than last week. We're up to about 9 people watching right now.
All sincerity, I live a pretty lonely experience. So if you want to come council and you're interested in learning about the budget and how the borough is financed, I just came back from the Access Information Court, and I have the formula in hand. I have the data. The problem is I only have one mouth, 2 arms, and 2 legs. So and there's only so much I can do. And this is a passion of mine, along with trains. And I want to see, I have a goal. My goal is I want to see CDNEG get its fair share, and we deserve it. We're a wonderful, amazing community. I think, I think we have a lot to contribute to the city and continue to contribute to the city. And I think that we have we are entitled to having our fair share, and we are a cash cow to the city, right? Like if you look at the total value of the property in CDNDG, we're right after Ville Marie. Okay, so like we are like way up there, and we are generating massive tax dollars for the central city. But what's happening, and it's consistently been happening, is they taking our money. And Kristen Arsenault resigned on this point, if you remember correctly, Joel. You said that the city grandiose goes elsewhere, and elsewhere is not CDNDG. So I challenge everybody.
Nobody disagrees with you. Nobody on council, at least as long as I've been.
No, what are they going to do about
nobody
it?
Disagrees.
They keep on voting for it.
That's your question as citizens. That's what Holden's asking about.
Right.
Because every single person that's been pushed on this issue for the years that I've been watching has said, yes, we agree, but it's complicated. We're working. We're trying to figure it out. So maybe they need a push.
But I think like that's where it comes down to, Alex, like, where like I'm trying to move past the diagnosis, right? Like,
right.
I mean, you're probably going to bring it up every week, and we'll probably have the same conversation a lot.
Yes.
But the reality is, I think everybody knows that NDG is getting fucked. It's not a secret.
I'm going to say this. You know, yeah. Short, sweet. Short, sweet. Can I make it short, sweet? Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, short, sweet. The diagnosis, the problem is that we have this party system in the city of Montreal, and our needs are always being, how do you say, placed secondary to that. And this is what continuously hurts us. And the other issue that hurts us is that we're a really large borough, and it's really hard to organize ourselves properly. And it's really easy for political machines to sort of like target specific groups, right? Because participation rates are so low. So to change it, we need people voting, and we need to vote for people who are generally from the community, right? Who have a power base within the community. They're not sort of like vessels of a party. Because the second we elect people that, you know, don't even live here and they come from elsewhere, they're kind of filling some sort of sweet demographic spot for marketing purposes, right? I know that's what I'm saying right now is really loaded. Granted, but what we need is people who are born or lived here, raised here, and have local support. And if they have local support, they have a capacity to challenge the party because they have the ability to get elected in spite of the party. That's my view.
I don't think
a singular.
But I think it's about how you go about it. Again, parties can be great things, but they can also be huge obstacles to progress. And your opinion on it will change depending on whether you're part of the one that's in charge or not.
Exactly.
That's how it happens.
But also, like, even to that end, right? So the next election is what?
I see it every time the administrations change, right?
But the next election's only in 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
People can get involved.
So people can get involved in 2023, and that's why I think we need to focus on.
Right? I'm back in the game. So if people are interested, you know, I've got to put together a team for the next election, and I'm going to be there. So
we're going to definitely do that. But we also, as a community, need to think beyond politics, because like one of the things, if we want to even go into this Terrebonne Bike Path topic, is how moot a lot of this politics is about to be. A lot of this Facebook complaining and stuff, I don't think it's going to shift no needle. I don't think any of the Facebook groups either direction, like, come on, 300 people.
I know. No, because this issue has been decided, so I don't think that's going to have any impact.
So, but on other issues and things, I'm just saying. But like, let's say, for the sake of the 300 people showed up on the middle of Terrebonne and protested, maybe that would have a more visible impact than just a Facebook group.
Joel, are you saying that the bike path has been decided and it's happening no matter what happens November 30th?
Well, I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen on December 1st. There's going to be an apocalypse, but I will. I think it's a safe bet to say the borough has said this is the plan. We're going to have an info session on the 30th. It's not it's a Q&A, but it's not, hey, let's come up with a plan. It's here's the plan we came up with.
Right.
And we're explaining to you what it's going to be. Maybe with the intent to clear up some misconceptions about it, or to go into the finer details the best they can in person. It's going to end up being a clash of opinions of two sides to this issue. That'll be fun for both sides to engage in, but ultimately, I don't see how this is not going through as is.
You don't see it going through as is? Is that you
No,
don't think?
I don't see how it could not
Yeah.
go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely like the way it was presented as a done deal is how I understood it. Like nobody came and asked our
this boogeyman effect. People, they throw this out at bike paths, and people opposed to bike paths say Valerie Plante and bike paths. What about the veterans and the homeless and wait times and ERs? It's all nonsense. And then there's people who are pro bike path who look at people who are anti bike path and look at them as troglodytes, which is also not fair.
That's
I
not fair.
enjoy
It's
it
fair.
because I get to write about it, and I love riding on bike paths. So
It's partisan. It's become very divisive. I agree.
Unfortunately, because both sides want what they believe is best for the common good.
Right. And it gets wrapped up also in like the climate crisis and a variety of different issues related to like livable cities and
Listen, if you don't ride and you have nowhere to park your car, this is a huge issue for you.
It is.
I completely
If you ride
agree.
a bike, if it's your main source of transportation, you and your family, especially if you have kids on bicycles and you want to encourage them to live that way, it's a huge issue for you. So how do you reconcile the two? Have some people live in some parts of the city and some elsewhere? No, it's cohabitation.
And Joel raises a good point. I cycle and I cycle quite a bit. And I will say that I don't feel completely safe on the cycling on the streets of CDNDG. And I not just at Terrebonne, but I cycle on what is it? The street there? Oh my God. Côte Saint Antoine, where you go up where you got LCC is, and I've cycled that street, and I have to say, there's a bike path there, supposedly, but it's not separated, it's not protected, and I see young children.
Girard.
Yeah, I see young people cycling there, and I'm
but
like,
you don't find the Girard one fine? I've never felt unsafe on Girard.
Well, I use Girard quite often, but when there's cars, trucks, or buses, and if they're getting a little close, I think a road like Girard, I could use at least a little bit more of a suggestion to back the fuck off.
Right. No, that makes sense. Like, I'll be honest, I, just to put it on the record, could not care less about the Terrebonne Bike Path. In terms of my personal usage, I don't think I'd use it. I live on Fielding. I live on a bike path. So it's like, I'm never going to be on the Terrebonne path.
The closest call I've had this year was on Fielding, on the bike path, by someone getting out of a car and stepping into the bike path with her back to me, holding onto her precious. And I actually almost flipped trying to.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Not wipe out that family.
I actually find the current bike path layout in Fielding terrifying, especially now that I drive, because I I'll come up. Well, I when you're coming onto Fielding, like let's say you're taking Rosedale up. You can't, or not, Rosedale's a bad example because of the bus stop, but like you go up a block where there's no bus, you can't actually see oncoming traffic now that they moved the cars out. And then you're blocking the bike path, and like it's real okay at night. So like I don't know if the solution they did with putting the cars outside the bike path is the right one, to be honest with you.
I think ultimately I think that's the safest bet. I think that's been proven. But there's places where it's more appropriate than others. They did it on Plamondon and Westbury, which is a bit of a nightmare because it's right in front of a school and a daycare. And the drop-off zone is right there. So in the morning, you have hundreds of people crossing the bike path with little kids and strollers.
Right.
And so there, it's not a good example of where to put it. But I mean, ultimately, again, they're applying a model. And it was Snowden counselor Sonny Morose who I got to say said it best. He said, "Listen, I'm all for bike paths, but if you're going to do big things, you got to do them right, and you can't do them fast and accelerated according to a political calendar." I got where people get kind of freaked out.
I got a question for you, Joel, and the question I have is, I thought of this, but I'm trying to understand. Like we had a Terrebonne version 1.0 in Sue Montgomery, right?
Before my time.
Oh, it was before your time.
Well, I was out in the cold in the Netherlands there.
Okay,
well, yes, what did you want to?
So the thing I just what I don't like about this whole way this thing is playing out is that Sue Montgomery introduced the idea of a bike path for Terrebonne, and it speaks a bit to how politics plays itself in our neighborhood in negative ways and in unfortunate ways. And at that time, because Sue Montgomery was ejected from caucus, you had the Projet Montreal councillors basically torpedo the plan at that point in time, and along with Perez and Rotran, who were trying to set themselves.
All dialogue was poisoned at that point.
Yeah, and I just find that it's like here we are again at version 2.0, and I just find that why is it that there wasn't any effort made to like have an open conversation with people in Terrebonne.
They did have a consultative committee when they put in this latest the technical report, which is a pretty voluminous thing.
Right.
When they showed the different scenarios that they proposed.
But this committee was open to all, or were they
I'm not sure.
Invited by the city to participate, right?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, there's natural constituencies. There's three schools on Terrebonne, and there's a church, and then there's residents, and then there's cyclists and pedestrians and political people who are supposed to be representing their constituencies, not sub-constituencies. The person representing Loyola should be representing Loyola, not the group of cyclists in Loyola, or vice versa, the group of car drivers. They're there for the greater good.
That's correct.
On an exercise like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens November 30th. That's for sure. Because I went to the meeting they had at Benny Library.
Hold on, I'm sorry. You're referring to Thursday. There's going to be the session's going to be.
That's correct. It's going to be very interesting because I went to the session they had there on the flooding, and that was I tell you, that was one of the most antagonistic meetings I had ever been to. But that dynamic was different because everybody that was there, a resident, was really not happy with the city. They were all on the same side of the fence. Now this time you're going to have like kind of the city proposing a plan in which some of the people there are going to agree with, and then you're going to have another large contingent that's going to be opposed to it. And I'm just trying to figure out how that's going to play itself out.
I think it's going to be a big nothing burger. I think they're going to be presenting it, and some people will applaud, and some will boo, and vice versa. I don't think there's going to be anything of real consequence.
That's kind of it. I mean, unless a fight breaks out, upon which that might be sort of newsworthy, sort of. But I don't think it'll change anything.
That could be interesting because cyclists are usually more fit than non-cyclists, so it might be an uneven brawl.
That's hilarious.
More healthier.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we're gonna have a showdown.
I regret some of the dialogue because I don't have a real opinion on Terrebonne because I don't use Terrebonne. But I use bike paths when I can find them. I'm holding out for Jean Talon for a rev. But the thing about this is now there's these opposing Facebook groups about it, and they're all meeting on Thrive NDG. And they're accusing each other of spying. And I joined one and was kicked out twice. And I saw on the pro bike path group, I saw some real conciliatory language that was suggesting, let's reach out to our neighbors. This is a thing that we can work together on. And on the other side, I saw something as this is being rammed down our throats. They're never the twain shall meet. So I feel for everybody.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Terrebonne's not a big deal for me. Fielding is because I use Fielding to go through Hampstead Isabella, right, to connect with the mountain. And what I can't understand is, I would think that Fielding would be a priority for the borough in terms of like winter cycling, but clearly it's not because they're removing it.
I don't see how it would be. Like, let's be real. A lot of this winter stuff happening right now is tied into Bixie, and they don't care about us, bro. Like, the young people be leaving NDG, not coming into NDG, and it's young people that be feeding that Bixie. And I say this because, like, when you do food delivery on a bicycle.
As the old fart that you are, Holden.
Yo, I'm 36. I'm not, a young guy no more.
Okay.
Like, I got them grays. It's.
I see it.
I wish it was. I'm just racing to y'all. I'm just racing on to y'all.
But back
but
on
like I
field-
just see like across the board, the Bixie program is really a lot of young students, a lot of young people cruising around.
Right.
It's and like tourists, two groups of
But
people that don't come to NDG because there's no reason to really come to NDG.
well, we have Concordia University, we have U of M, we have
Hold
like
on, hold on,
we've got yes.
But this is a Bixie specific example, and at a recent mobility consult at the borough,
Right.
there was a lot of discussion about Bixie and about Communato, and if it, I don't have the numbers at hand, I could find them, but this area of town has far fewer Bixies than you'd think. Like it's actually
It's
far
a
below
ghost
the
town.
median.
You need to own a bike here. You can't be on some
So
Bixie.
no, but the argument is if you bring them, they will come. Like if you build it, if
Right.
you bring more Bixies,
Build it,
more
build it,
people
and they will
use
come.
them.
Yes.
And there really aren't that many Bixie stations in NDG, in spite of what people may think. It's really
I literally have to
underrepresented
walk
here.
10 minutes to the closest Bixie station from my apartment. And I mean, granted, I'm on Fielden up in the parts where nobody cares about, but but like, there's really just the one on like that park by Coronation, like or whatever, all the way in the far corner though, up on Summerled, and then the other one is by the running track. And there's no other Bixie in this whole section of this giant populated building.
You can agitate, you can advocate, you can do all that. You can demand it and request it if you wanted it.
I mean, I bought a bike, right? Because that's what I think a lot of us end up doing. Because at that point, you're like, I don't need the big seat. I got a bike now. But I don't know if I'd had the choice, would have I ended up buying a bike? You know, like
well, if you have
years
more
and years ago.
Electric bikes nearby, and you don't have to. And if you're in an apartment, you don't have to schlep it upstairs or keep it locked outside and get it ripped off.
I think it's a huge benefit, but I definitely think that this pilot project for all this winter bike pathing that they're talking about is highly correlated to Bixie. Is my understanding.
Just to throw in another tidbit from the formula, the borough does get extra money to service winter bike pass, and that's in the formula. So
why Walkley? Why is the Walkley bike path being serviced?
It's not a big amount, but there is money made available to the city to support winter.
Why is the Fielding bike path closed, but the Walkley bike path is going to get serviced?
Yeah, I find bizarre.
That is a whole like Cold St. Luke Road to Sherbrooke. Yeah. It's who is this bike path for in the winter?
I use Walkley. Walkley, but I'm the only person on it.
Why do you use
hold
Walkley?
on. Andrew Morrow said the report said residents were included in the committee, but by the wording, it looks like there were only 3 total residents in the report for the Terrebonne Bike Path. Thanks for commenting, Andrew.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I did not know that. Yeah,
well, 3 could be representative if there's only like 8 people on the committee. It could be representative. It's all about the portion.
Yeah, but again, my question again is, I have experience dealing with the city and these committees, and
you're so cynical.
I am very cynical. Who are these people? Were they nominated by the councillors?
What's with the McCarthyism?
What's the story? What's the backstory?
Are you now, or have you?
The devil's in the details, Joel. When we get into the poster conversation a little later, I think you would appreciate what I'm saying right now a little more. But saying that, it's that whole bike path conversation is going to be very, very interesting. Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that all kind of plays out.
Well, I believe there's a demonstration Thursday before the meeting, and there's also a press conference being called tomorrow.
Who's calling this press conference?
Well, 1 p.m. I think it's people opposed to the bike path, and
I see.
Be representatives of the school board there.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
The school board is against the bike path?
Well, no, but the school board has concerns because they have 2 schools on that road.
Yes.
Well, actually 3 if you count Philip Layton. Yeah, Philip Layton, of course.
Right, of course.
Side, which is a very specialized clientele that needs easy, clean, safe access in and out.
Right. And a lot of the people in that school, that's the new school that came out of the McKay Center, right?
Correct.
And they have a lot of students there with special needs and mobility issues, right? So it's gonna be
a very special place.
Yeah,
to be taken care of.
Yeah. When I was a young man in high school, I went.
So, like, what's the concern? The lack of parking is the concern. Like, I'm not really sure what the concern is.
Well, I think it's flow, and I'm not sure where it's located on the proposed path, but it's the amount of flow and the safety for in and out. at times of the day, but I believe that's going to be on the eastbound portion, although I'm not sure. I don't have a.
Yeah. Then there's St. Monica's, of course, right?
And isn't Willingdon on Terrebonne?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
And
know.
Willingdon just redid their yard. They greened their yard.
Right. Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot playing on Terrebonne, that's for sure. It's going to be interesting how that all kind of like plays out.
It's trite to say, and I apologize, but I'm going to say it anyway. These should be your biggest problems. Where to put the bike path. When I was covering the East End and I was going to Pointe-aux-Trembles council meetings, and there was Rock Machine and Hell's Angels showing up at the council meetings because they wanted to have discussions about where the other ones could zone a clubhouse. And then I would drive home and I would pop into Hampstead Council for fun and see that they were arguing because the mayor's wife got to chose the color of the flowers in the park. I mean, it's called perspective, man.
Honestly, I could argue that those problems are equally as what they are today as what they would be now. It's just the gangs changed.
All right.
Colors.
So moving along, do we want to do a train break, or do we want to go right?
Train break, please tell
Alex wants to talk about trains.
I always do a train segment to break like
We're on episode 3 as we talk about the always is.
Last time Alex, I talked about
it's quite literally train facts with Alex on the Trainman Report as a sense of levity.
Is this like a quiz or?
No, I just talk about
it's just
train
literally
facts
a train break
that I find amusing. And it's kind of a break in the conversation, a lighthearted break.
Okay.
Some levity.
So I wanted to talk today about time and train time, and how being in the wrong place in a train could kill people, which happens regularly. I don't know if you guys remember, but not that long ago, we had a major accident in Italy, right, where the train kind of burnt a whole bunch of signals and was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and there was a head-on collision, and a whole bunch of people died. And today, one of the things that I discovered through my interest and kind of like my hobby of dealing with trains is the pocket watch standard, which was introduced in the late 1800s. Because what happened in 1891, an engineer's stopwatch stopped working for 4 minutes, and his train was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and 9 people got killed. So they introduced the stopwatch standard. So I have this stopwatch here, which is the new.
Wait, I'm getting shades of Christopher Walken in Pulp Fiction. You got
so here we go.
This watch.
Here's the watch, right? So this is the pocket watch, the new standard that was introduced because people died. And one of the unique and interesting features of this watch, which makes it a train pocket watch, is that you can't, most watches, you can change the time by pulling up on the crown. You're old enough to know this, right, Joel? You pull on the crown and you turn it. But the fear was that you would pull up the crown.
They still do that, Alex. They still do that.
Okay, all right. All right, they still do that. I'm glad. So everybody's got a reference point. So the problem was that if this was in your pocket, you could accidentally pull up the crown, change the time, and guess what? Your train would be in the wrong place in the wrong time. Because remember, this is back in the day when we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any communication. The train, you were in this kind of like isolated world. And the only way you knew what time it was is by the watch in your pocket. So to change the time on this, let me see if I can get this in the microphone. So to change the time on this, what you would have to physically do is they're going to do it. You'd have to remove the faceplate.
Boom. You gotta keep that on the camera. Keep it up on the camera if you're doing it.
There we go. I'm having a tough time with the camera. So there, I'm removing the faceplate, and it literally comes off. You see that?
Oh boy.
And in this corner, no, got it wrong. In this corner, there we go. I'm having a tough time, people. So please bear with me. There's a lever that you have to pull out with your fingernail, which is kind of hard to do. So I don't want to like spend a lot of time. Yeah, I'll try. There we go. I'm trying to pull on it. There, I actually got it out. So you see, I got that lever out, and now I can change the time. You see, the time is actually moving.
Awesome.
Right.
So I close that down. Boom. I have to be careful, right?
Yeah. Thanks, John Jordan, for your encouraging comment.
So there's the train moment. There's a train moment. And if you want to see something
I have a question, train man.
Yes, sir.
Why can't we get a better service train between Montreal and Toronto, Montreal, Quebec
Oh
City?
man,
Like why
that's
why
a
a
long
slow schlep like
That's
that?
a
that's a
big
long
Give
question.
you old
conversation.
idea.
See, look, I opened it up. You see it? There it
Wow.
That's
goes. Isn't that
cool.
cool?
I
That's
do like
21
watches.
21 joules. Look at that
That's
thing
lit.
go. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I'll fucks with watches and time standards and logistics of trains enough that I actually know the answer to your question.
Then hit me.
Well, the
Oh,
short
that's
version
no, no,
is
no, 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 no. We're not
In
getting.
30
okay.
words or less, tell me. Tease
Commercial
me.
trains get priority and nobody want to invest.
Thank you, Holden. To make an effective high speed train between Montreal to Toronto, we would have to basically create a corridor dedicated to that purpose. We'd have to dig 4 feet deep the entire way, so big a trench, to put down a footing 4 feet deep that wouldn't move, with the thaw and frost cycle. Because if that track, it can't move very much because you got trains going at 360 kilometers an hour. They got to be straight and true. And then you don't forget that this train track, right, that goes to Montreal, Toronto, has to pass through all these towns, these roads, these bridges. So you have to either go above them or go below them. And a train, unlike a car or a truck, right, it handles slopes really badly. And at
Right.
360 kilometers an hour, it also handles curves really badly. And then you got to fence the whole goddamn thing because you can't have the animals coming in your track because
So
then you're going to
basically what you're
roadkill.
telling me is
It's just like
I shouldn't hold my breath.
Not in
and
the
people
least.
are always comparing Canada or why our passenger train
And
service
we have
sucks
winter.
so much, and it does suck. I own that. I accept that. Is also because the distances between major cities, major city points like Montreal, Toronto, they're far. They're really far.
Facts. You learn that in music right quick.
And then that last point is that every time someone in Canada, right, they talk about they call it the Quebec Windsor corridor, right? And like Quebec is not a viable market. Quebec City, right? It doesn't make sense to have
Well,
an
if you get off
express
in
train.
St. Croix, it feels like you're on the scene of Walking
So,
Dead.
like, why would you spend all that money to make a train? And the politicians know they have to spend that money because if they don't,
And
it'll be like the tunnel, right? That they said they were going to build under the river, and they didn't, and they got themselves in all this trouble. So
and it's also like, where's the market, right? Because like
Right.
we're also that crazy distance, but like the state of California has more people than us. So
But
like
yeah,
like
exactly.
the whole
But-
country, the state of California has more people than us. So like it's like when you look
But-
at California on a map and compare it to Canada, you can see how they can get away with some nicer trains than us.
last comment, but be proud, Canadians. Be proud because in terms of freight, Canada is like leading edge. You go to Europe and
We have to be.
and we transport freight in a very sophisticated way via train. We're able to transport massive amounts of natural resources to export. This our rail network makes us rich as a nation. So we have a lot to be proud of.
That's the reason why they can't extend Cavendish.
That's
All right,
hilarious.
next
There's your
subject.
answer.
Okay, what do you guys? Okay,
Let's talk
do
about the signs so we can
the
or
posters?
no, let's do Bill 15. I feel like Bill
Okay.
15 would be like a
All right.
nice
You
quick
brought
one.
up Bill 15 last night because I mentioned it in passing because I was at a
What
town
is Bill
hall.
15? That sounds like
Bill
a thing that
15?
the world needs to know.
Well, yes, it is. It's not specific to NDG, but English-speaking Quebecers should take note. Bill 15 is the CAC government's current attempt to reform the healthcare system by massively centralizing decision-making and pushing all the power uphill, so to speak. What it's going to do is it's going to remove the corporate identities of all healthcare institutions. That means hospitals, the MUHC will no longer have a board of directors. It'll have a committee set up by former members of the board of directors to ensure that decisions that come from on high, from a new agency established called Santé Quebec, to make sure that those decisions are implemented. But gone will be that institutional memory, those connections with the community, fundraising, foundation, local innovation.
And this would affect stuff like the Jewish as well.
Yeah.
Which could affect every healthcare institution in the province. So I'm glad you asked because the former dean of McGill Medical School, Dr. Abraham Fuchs, was there last night at Dawson College at this town hall, and he gave the example of the Jewish, and he said when they created the Siegel Cancer Center, people in the board of directors had come to that decision that this is something we need to do, to specialize. We need to do something. And they went to Alvin Siegel and said, we need to get it done. And he gave them $30 million and they made it happen. Government's not going to do that. Government's not going to say, we think we need a specialized cancer center in Côte-des-Neiges. Let's ask people for money. And you're going to go ask philanthropists, you're going to ask Celine Dion to donate $1 million to Santé Quebec. It's not going to happen. So the English community advocates are sounding the alarm, because this is also going to affect healthcare services in the regions where your only access to English services is through local access committees that help you obtain services and healthcare services in English, where usually those rights are not guaranteed. And those committees will be gone.
You're talking about the middle of nowhere Quebec places?
Correct. So those access committees and that volunteerism is going to be discouraged by this bill. And the government wants to pass it within the next 2 weeks. So there's a petition circulating promoted by one of the MNAs. It could be Jennifer Macaron from Westmount. I'm not sure though. And it's a 1,200 clause bill. And the Liberals have gone through about half of it. They proposed hundreds of amendments. There's a lot of problems, things they haven't even gotten around to studying yet. Yet the government wants to get this through within the next 2 weeks. So people should take notice, Google it, look for it, read about it. I might have something in the paper about it tomorrow. Check out the Suburban.
Yeah, please.
This does sound like it's more important than a Terrebonne Bike Path.
Well,
I'm just going to throw that out there.
I'm dangling in the corner my $7 million for Los Angeles Kings while they completely upturn the healthcare system. Think about that.
Wait, say that again?
The distraction of the hockey game, of the LA Kings.
Yeah. The government giving money to the hockey game.
Yeah. So let me run that to that.
The less sexy things.
We have the MU8, we have the Glen, the super hospital. Included in that is the Children's Hospital. There's also the Shriners that's part of that facility. Yeah. This is all in CDNDG. So if you don't think it affects us,
Royal Vic, the Jewish, St. Mary's,
you got St. Mary's, you got the Jewish.
This is going to replace all the CS and C3S. And all those boards of directors.
This is huge. This is massive. And
you're going to have an IT director making decisions in Quebec City for what's happening in Montreal.
You know what this
afraid.
You know what this makes me like. When I hear what Joel's talking about Bill 15, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, okay, we have the Quebec government that's issued restrictions on Anglophone CEGEPs in Quebec. And really, can you call them Anglophone CEGEPs? They're really multilingual institutions these days. I don't know if you've been to Dawson or Vanier these days, right? They're just organizations. They're institutions.
I have not walked into a CEGEP in a very long time.
But they're institutions that are not sort of like under this cultural ideal of what the nationalist governments expect Quebec to be. Let's just put it that way. Let's get Anglophone out of the picture. Then you have the whole issue with the universities with the tuition fee increases for out of province students. This is affecting my family. I have relatives that live in Ontario that want to come to school, and it's affecting their plans, right?
Yeah, but you know what? Can I just interrupt for a second? I've heard a lot of these.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on.
Let's run it.
These doomsday scenarios about how you can't come, he's going to ruin your life plans. I think all you need to do is establish residence. So that means come, get a job.
I don't know how that happens.
For a year in Montreal, go live on the plateau, and then get a cut rate education.
No, live in NDG. Stop it.
Sorry, live in NDG.
Please.
Of course. So get a job, live in NDG, establish residence here, and get yourself a cut rate education. Even
like the Wheel Club is trying to be more lit.
so back to my original point. It's like the cultural minority populations is we're getting hit by all these different angles. It's just this constant squeeze, and I'm getting this feeling that some people don't want me to be here anymore, and I don't like that feeling. And it's like, well, am I not a Quebecer? Am I not a Montrealer just as much as anybody
Anglo,
else?
My man.
I'm half Italian. I don't speak Italian. My mother's French Canadian. My grandfather was Jean-Guy Lapierre, and this is
So
not my home.
my
I was
grandfather is also a Maurice Roy, so like he's
yeah,
actually like
Holden
real
Roy.
Quebecois, but like
Holden
he left
Stephan
when we were
Roy.
young, right?
It's not
So like I
Roy,
didn't
it's
grow up with
Roy.
that Quebec connection, but technically half my family beyond like there's a giant chunk that's like real. Like May West and Pepsi, Quebec, wow. Like I walked into that dude's crib, and the first thing I saw about him, I met him when I was older. May West and Pepsi. I was tripping. I was like, this can't be fucking real, but it was. Okay, it was real, and he lived in Greenfield Park and shit. So like real
I used
shit.
to go to batting cages when I was a kid in Greenfield Park.
But like, I think like my entire life, right? Like I'm 36, like I said, has been like English people get the fuck out. I remember when it happened in '95, and I'm about 10. I'm becoming more cognizant of shit. 8, 9, or 96, whenever that shit happened. But I was like just becoming cognizant of life beyond my little 10-year-old selfish. And yeah, my whole awareness cycle is get out Anglophones. And then honestly, Anglophones leave here and just talk shit about Quebec and make us look bad to the rest of the fucking Canada. So the rest of Canada thinks the worst of us and it does no service to us back home. If they went out there and advocated like we were dope or something, that would be cool. But like,
yeah, but they left because they didn't want to stay here because they didn't like it here.
And then they make us look bad.
Not
is my
because they
beef
wanted
with
to
that.
go be cheerleaders for us elsewhere.
Right. But
on that note, to change gears, if I could, what disturbs me most about the current political environment, and I think you've heard me speak about this, Joel, already, is that I think that the impact result of a lot of the political environment, all this legislation, is that people will leave. And what we did see in CDNEG, if you look at the population figures, right, when we had the first Bill 101, it nosedived. People left en masse, and the community changed fundamentally. It was a primarily, a very Anglophone. Côte-de-Neige was very Anglophone for the most part, and a lot of Anglophones left Montreal for a variety of different reasons. Some of them was for political reasons, and then because of the politics, and economic opportunities were less available, so they left and went off to greener pastures. Right, that's where we saw Toronto overtake Montreal. I'm old enough to remember when Montreal was the economic and political capital of this country. And what I'm really concerned about right now is we're going to enter another dark period where we're going to see people leave for a variety of different reasons, be them economic opportunities
especially
elsewhere.
if we can't buy houses.
That reason as well, but I don't think that Toronto's going to solve that for us.
No, but I think it's going to be.
But I think that's an
out of the city into the suburbs.
Because I do think that's a huge NDG issue. Because again, like,
and we don't have bilingual status, right?
And if I want to own a home that's not a condo,
right,
it means leave NDG, and that's pretty much anybody under 40 right now. And like maybe you got nepotism in your life or some parent in inheritance line, because that's how a lot of people end up getting their you got to wait till somebody leaves you something so you can get into the house game now. And otherwise, my options are honestly go to the South Shore. If I move to the South Shore, I can get a house, and I'm just talking. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'm good with the apartment.
Don't even
I'm
talk
trying to be
about
a
it.
nomad. But I think it's very important that people in NDG are aware of the reality of things that would make people leave the province, or sorry, the neighborhood, if we're going to have honest conversations about change. If it's not lit to stay here and it's too expensive to stay here, well, you've brought it up. The young people are really the exodus.
And if we lose our young people, like how can a community survive if we don't have any young people? Especially like,
turnover. You stay here till you're older, you get married, you take off. If you're looking to support yourself, if you're looking to get a home, as Holden says, you take off, and then more young people come in.
Young people come into where? Into what?
NDG is a very livable city, a town.
Yeah, but we're talking about affordability. How can young people afford to live in?
Not in a home.
Oh, I see. Are apartments affordable in NDG?
Relative to the rest of the city, yes.
Affordable elsewhere in the city?
I don't know.
They're not. No,
I haven't run the numbers.
Even with the prices here, like you're not going, like we're still pretty good if you do a real relative comparison. Like what costs $1,500 here is $25 downtown, or is like $819 in the plateau.
Average. Yeah.
So like it's just really weird that now $1,500 is considered a good low price. like, or maybe not 15, but like people like, is there anything under 1,000 in the city left? And like, no, not really. Nothing is.
Maybe like a studio basement apartment with like no windows, like from a log
Kind of, yeah.
opening scene or
Like
something.
you're almost asking for cockroaches at that point, but like, yeah, so there is that concern. I do think young people will come back as a Concordia to a degree, but then if the education thing does get harder, and they're not to go doomsday with it, but there will be an impact if all of a sudden a bunch of Ontario kids can't pull up to Concordia and live in student housing. And I say student housing in particular because if less people come, like people in Quebec don't need student housing. So the whole student housing that I'm pretty sure like that like Dagwoods next to Concordia is funded on student housing and things like that, right? Like there are businesses that will get impacted.
Of course.
Big time. George Souvlaki, you know, he's one
they
guy
got
who
mad
has...
expensive. They used to be really nice, then they got really expensive.
Oh, right. So we need to do like plugs for businesses
George
here.
Stories.
I like George.
I've ordered from George, and then you think your call is going to be like a 3-minute order, and then you're a 15-minute call with George himself later, and you hear his whole life story and stuff. Ordering from Souvlaki George after midnight.
Man.
I need to do a model of George
that was an
Souvlaki's.
amazing experience.
I got to do that. I don't know why I haven't done it yet. So, but on that note, you know, I'm hoping that later in the other podcasts coming up, maybe we could do some shameless plugs of businesses. Not that we're going to get paid for it, but I was going to do a plug. You can't see it. The green screen is doing a trip on it, but this is something I got from Akavan, and I fell in love with it. It's called Gourmet Sabzi, and it's vegetable stew, and but it has beef in it, so it's not vegan, but it doesn't have any milk and it doesn't have any wheat in it. So if you're like lactose intolerant,
gluten free,
it will fit the ticket. And I guess I'm going to do a plug here for Akavan and say that if you're looking like, meals have become expensive. I don't know about you guys, but I go to a restaurant now. It's like insane. I can't afford this anymore. And nice thing about Akavan, here's a shameless plug. I'm not getting paid for this, by the way, is you can go to Akavan. They have a restaurant and they do kebabs and they have like pre-prepared soups and stuff like that. And they're very highly nutritious. And you don't feel like after you eat them, you feel bloated or you need to drink like 10 cups of water because it's very salted. So here's my plug for Akavan. Go check it out. It's a nice neighborhood local business that provides good stuff to us. So there. So
awesome.
Are we gonna end this segment on the most controversial topic?
I got the Orange Julep merch on, just in case y'all didn't know. The Orange Julep has an entire merch line.
Well done.
So like, you should show support too. Like, I think honestly, what would be an interesting thing on an unrelated topic is if people did go buy the merchandising of local stores, because their profit points are higher on these items, and it's a great way to advertise local businesses around the city. Like my homegirl owns Phoenix Books, and like I know she got merch for it, so you can go buy that Phoenix Books merch and whatnot. And she's also a dope singer, so shout out her. I'm gonna plug the business as well. And I do want to make sure that with this platform we take the time to like shed light on local NDG businesses and things like that, because this is meant to be a community platform, even if it is based around Alex.
Hey guys, come on. The Trainman shtick is just a way for us to get some
Trainman is incredible. It is
to get some attention, right? So
between
to
DJ,
everybody, it's a shtick.
It's
get
amazing.
It, right?
What did you say, Alex?
It's a shtick.
A shtick. Okay, I thought you said you called it a stick.
No. It's a shtick, right? So I shamelessly say to everybody, I use this as a vehicle to hopefully get people to start talking about our community in constructive and productive ways. Well, it's good to complain too, right?
You could even complain about us. You could even tell us that you're tired of seeing Trainman's face in Thrive NDG 3 times a day, and that's okay.
That's fine with me.
And I'm never online.
You need to be online more.
I encourage
saying that.
Oh, I'm just gonna say I'm in entertainment. Y'all can just hate me. That's gonna make me more popular. Let's go. Like I live for that shit. Like,
I like you.
I hold back.
What's that?
Oh,
What's the pickle
we could
thing?
definitely do that. I made a
Oh,
song
wait.
one time.
We're not going in pickles, guys. Come on. We're going off topic. You
It'll
want
be
to
a
add
quick. I
pickles
can do it in
next
a minute.
podcast?
I
We'll
can
the
do it. It's
pickles
my
next
brand.
time. Okay.
I sell this merch. I do it in a minute. Basically, I made a song about how I don't like pickle chips, and then it kind of turned into a wave because about 1 in 3 people hate pickles as much as I do, and we get bullied by the pickle lovers. So the merch is basically split into 3 items. There's the people who like pickles, the people who don't like pickles, and then for the people that are kind of split in the middle, we got a third design for you guys available as well. And since nobody for some reason tapped into the pickle market, it became part of, and so I like to put it like I'm pimping pickles because I don't like them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Alrighty. Oh, hold it. That was absolutely
merch
wonderful.
is available. That's what's in that red bag up there. Merch is available.
I want to thank you for that. Wow.
But yeah, so next topic.
Wow.
So,
Hello?
Right. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The next topic would be basically the signs. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Signs at Benny, or what are we talking about?
Well, I added this subject, the title, and I guess
it's a good one.
It also touches on a kind of like not kind of. Let me not.
It's a free speech issue.
Well, not only a free speech issue, it deals with an unfortunate state of world affairs right now, and we've had some unfortunate incidents, attacks on Jewish institutions in the borough of CDNG. It was just a synagogue yesterday that was firebombed, if I remember correctly. Is that correct, Joel?
It's the Jewish Community Council on the Canada.
Yeah.
The synagogue was in the West Island. The schools were in Côte-Neige and DG.
The school, I think they're referring to the one in Côte St. Luc, right?
The schools were off of Van Horn towards the border with there's one right here near Mackenzie King Park, right behind.
Right. Okay. So the issue I wanted to kind of touch upon is the whole idea of there were people posting posts about the hostages being held in Israel.
The hostage posters.
Yeah. That's right. Which I think, I think that was, those posters actually contained the face of a person that was taken hostage, and I think that was an important message to communicate about what's happening, among many messages. And people, the city, from when I was at the last council meeting, and stop me if I'm wrong there, Joel, but I do think that the director admitted that the employees were taking them down, and the borough mayor kind of like said, well, okay, going forward, we're going to exercise some, what's discretion? What's the word she used? What's the language?
Flexibility.
Right.
Flexibility and understanding.
And then there's been reports of individual citizens tearing down these hostage signs.
Oh, they've been doing that all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I have a problem with that. The Supreme Court ruled on, believe it or not, on what they call it, affichage chauffage in French in Montreal, which means wild postering on public furniture. And the Supreme Court ruled on that and said that's a constitutional right, the right to post notices. And I know that because 20 years ago, I got into a battle with the civil servants because they came after me tooth and nail for putting up signs advertising an association meeting.
Because that was about garbage collection, right?
Dirty streets and unkept streets. That's right. So I was, in essence, attacking the civil service as a bad job. And what they did, they sent their inspectors and they came after me. And they fined me 21 times. And that started at 2-3, I think it was about 3 years it dragged the courts. And I made the constitutional argument, that was provided under the Constitution. And I discovered also, remember we were talking about earlier McCarthyism there, Joel. I did an access information request and I discovered that I was the only person who was fined in the borough for that offense.
They should name the bylaw after you.
And so there was posters everywhere, right? So
you are the precedent-setting case on whether or not we can put up shocking posters as a form of protest. is my understanding of that.
I wasn't precedent because there was Julius Gray was also handling a
Oh,
case with Raji Singh. Is that his name?
Jaggi Singh.
Jaggi Singh, that's correct, because he was putting up posters and the city went after him, but not in the borough of Côte-de-Nez. They went after him downtown in Ville Marie.
Well, I got to say, the one thing I recall most about your case was the late great Henry Aubin wrote. Did he cover that?
Yes, he did.
And his famous headline was "You can beat City Hall" or something.
Yes,
like that.
that's correct.
You can fight City Hall.
Yeah, I did beat them, and it led to the dismissal. Well, actually, they don't dismiss anybody in the civil service in City Montreal. They transferred him.
They rolled
and they got rid of the borough director, Gaetan Réville, who was the director of the borough at that point in time. I had made a formal complaint against him to the Directeur Général de Montréal, directly related to his behavior and his basically his harassment of me as civic activist. And so I guess that's why I wanted to add that to the agenda.
So your issue with it is that the city had a problem with these posters, not necessarily that other citizens counter-protested.
That's not correct. What actually, if I may, what actually happened was that the city workers were seen taking down these posters that had pictures of children who were kidnapped by killers, and some people asked why. And the city responded in public that they had received multiple complaints and that there is a bylaw. So that the city, if there's a bylaw and nobody's complaining, they get around to it when they get around to it. It's like it could be the ragweed bylaw, how tall your hedges are. Until somebody really complains, nobody really acts. But Stéphane Plante, who's the Director General of the borough, said at the last council meeting that they received more than a couple complaints and that there were so many of these posters they had to act, so they dispatched employees to take them down. What we found out afterwards was this is you can read this on the Suburban, that there were 3 calls. There were 3 complaints registered. That's the response. I did not get a response from the city, from the elected officials, but I did get a response from the borough communications department, which said there were 3 complaints. And that and because there is a bylaw that justified, and they said there was a large quantity of these posters. Now, so people complained about it. It's against the law, so the borough felt it had to act. But they did say going forward they're going to show flexibility, because they have to kind of balance the interest here. I mean, would you start ripping down if there was, God forbid, a tragedy like we saw in the States where a whole bunch of young people were gunned down at a bar, or a shooting or harassment or a hate crime? Would you start ripping down pride posters? Would you start ripping down BLM posters? People have to deal with this with a certain level of sensitivity to the community concerned. And this got a lot of people's attention. And unfortunately, Côte-de-Nez-NDG is home to one of the largest Jewish communities in Canada, one of the largest populations of Holocaust survivors in Canada. It's the headquarters of the Jewish community campus. It's where 2 schools have been shot at, and a couple of institutions have been firebombed.
The Cumming Center, the Hebrew,
correct.
Hebrew.
So there's a sense that there needs to be dealt with in terms of discretion. There's nothing even remotely offensive about these posters.
Nothing.
Except if you have hate in your heart. And then
I'm going to just add one element to this that's probably not popular, but I'm very fascinated by this topic, and it has to do with youth and the youth going back at it. So the city coming around and destroying stuff, I don't think that's cool, because I don't really think it's the government's place to censor people who are protesting it. I can see why a lot of young people are disenfranchised with Israel. It was an interesting podcast I was listening to that kind of covered the psyche of how older people can remember the 80s and 90s, like the kind of before and after, and have like a more nuanced perception of everything. But if you're a young person and your whole life is 20 years old or less, all you know about the Gaza Strip is rubble. That's all you've seen your whole life. All
you know is what you're getting on TikTok.
That's a fact. And I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to add this extra layer of empathy.
Well, Holden, why else would you have 19-year-olds in downtown Toronto chanting, "We want caliphate"?
I totally agree with that.
Okay, guys, I love you.
I'm not trying to go stupidly political with it. But I think it's just it is relevant to the topic because part of your post even generated this idea of people with markers defacing posters and stuff. And I think it is important to equate that young people also have the right to come and counter protest by defacing your thing. You might not like it, but it's actually an equal action that you're putting up to your poster.
Right. So
Even if the intention
I don't agree with that. I think that if there's a poster out there that's communicating a message and you don't like that message, that's fine. Nobody's telling you need to agree with it. In an open democratic society, one of the things that I think that is important for that society to function properly is for the capacity of people to communicate ideas, and also for people to advance causes that they think are worthwhile, and that can manifest itself in different types of ways. It could be climate activism, it could be social justice causes, it could be also related to a vulnerable population. But I think that if you're opposed to the idea, then you go out and put your own posters up, right?
But those were also getting taken down.
I don't really agree.
That's something that was happening, is that the other side's posters were also getting attacked.
But there's no others, Holden, there's no other side to a picture of a child who was kidnapped by killers. There's no other side. There's no other side.
I agree with you. I'm not arguing this from the perspective of I'm just trying to say that this is, while this might be the case for people that are informed on the topic, a lot of people are not informed on the topic, and it has become divided bigger. And if we're going to just on this topic, unfortunately, due to misinformation and propaganda, both sides are using propaganda pretty heavy. This is how we got to this point. I mean, I think in the mind of people, like the young ones at least, because anybody with a marker, they're young, they're probably tagging already and shit like that, right? So I do think this is their own way of engaging in the process, and there might be better ways to do it, but I don't want to fully discourage people from engaging in the process, however it may manifest, and whether or not we're comfortable with it, because protest is uncomfortable when done correctly. Right. And it might be that I just don't want to paint it like they have hate in their hearts entirely as a monolith, because I think a lot of people are misguided.
I can't see it in any other way.
Right.
If you want to deface a poster that talks about the history of the conflict, if you want to rip down a flag, if you want to put up a picture of a political leader with horns on his head, if you want to use anti-Semitic tropes that are 200 years old in your art, go ahead. That shows who you are more than it shows who I am.
Right.
But if you have a problem with people saying, remember this face of this child, if it stirs up so much hate, whether that comes from ignorance or pure hate that you were born with somehow, that there's something wrong with you, and you feel the need to act on it, then I don't respect your side of the argument, because I don't see a side. That's why these posters are so exceptional, and that's why this example was so exceptional, because people were upset about it enough that they called the city to complain about it. They didn't rip it down themselves. In this case, they called the city. Yeah, but I guess they knew there was a bylaw against it.
Yeah, so but let me
informed people.
Can I jump in here, because my issue is I hear you, Joel, and I agree. Pretty much you're saying everything, saying something to be Holden, but I don't see it from that. I see it from, I don't know if my perspective is unique or maybe a little bit more nuanced. I see it as like, okay, someone puts up a poster and they're trying to communicate something, whatever that, let's just separate the issue, right? Whatever it is, to me, let's just look at it in a very theoretical perspective. Someone puts up a poster, whatever the issue is, and someone comes along, right, and decides, I don't like that poster, and they rip it down. To me, that's an act of censorship. They're basically preventing other people from seeing that message, right, and making a decision on their own terms, whether they agree with it or not. And they're basically removing information from people. And I don't think that's productive.
Well, my knee-jerk reaction was to say, well, but it's protest, as Holden's suggesting, just as burning a flag. But burning a flag is an active thing with a message of its own. This is destroying something that already exists, that's there for no one else to see. No one's watching you. No one's watching you.
Exactly.
You're not making
it's
a
pure.
Moment out of
to me,
I definitely find it cowardly. I will give you that. It's a cowardly approach.
It's pure censorship in my mind. And the other thing that really, like,
And I do
I
think
have
the censorship argument is really interesting too, because it is a form of censorship.
Could we back it up just a second? I mean, I'd be
Well,
happy to
I
talk
want to,
about
I want
posters in this
to,
issue till the cows
before,
come
I want to
home.
make one last point. All I want to say is that we live NDG, like, okay, the borough of CDNG, 170,000 people. And they're saying about, what is it, 60,000, 80,000 of those people live in NDG? Is that where we're at right now? So
Okay.
you got 3 people that pick up the city and
Yeah,
say,
no,
I don't like a
that's
poster.
ridiculous.
And the city sends people to take it down. It's like,
Right.
give
See,
me
that
a break.
I also
Either
think is ridiculous.
That's a
either you-
cultural disconnect from the,
Either-
that's a cultural disconnect.
Either you apply the
by the
bylaw
administration.
equally or you don't apply it at all. I don't understand who's making
Like, because
decisions
that's where you
at
said,
the
why is the
city.
charity
We're going to
poster
take
get to
that
go
sign
up?
down. We're going to keep that one up. I'm like, that's just
So listen,
me.
but remember when
That's
the
a silliness.
Remember when the graffiti popped up on Dakari? It was what's his name? Apperism, the graffiti artist
Right.
who put up that big tag of "Shut Up Kanye" with a fist punching Kanye West in the face with a
Right.
Star of David because
Right.
he was outraged. The artist was outraged about Kanye West's anti-Semitic behavior.
Right.
Well, I'm speaking with the guy from Transport Quebec, and he says they came and they took it down. They scrubbed it down because to them it had religious connotations, racial connotations. They don't know whether it's anti-racism or pro-racism.
Right.
They see any hint of something.
Right.
They don't do such a deep dive into it because they don't get nuance. Bureaucrats do not understand nuance.
Well, that
For
comes
the
back.
life of them.
That
So they
comes back.
scrub.
That comes to the other problem of the borough CDNDG is that the people who, the civil servants who serve us, don't live here, are not part of our
Completely legitimate
community,
topic
right?
of discussion.
And it's like they're making decisions on our behalf.
That is a really
yet
good
have no
argument for why
connection.
people should live here.
No connection to the community whatsoever, other than that they're employees of the city of Montreal. So, and also the Suburban, Joel, before your time back in Eileen Esner, is that her name? What was the former editor
Marlene Eisner.
but Marlene Esner's time, did a survey to try to figure out how many of the civil servants who worked at the borough CDNDG actually lived here. And what she discovered is that not only did they not live here, but they did not even live in the city of Montreal. They lived off island, right? So it's, again, that's another big problem of how we're governed. So that's my piece on that. But I will say this. I've put up a lot of posters in my lifetime as a civic activist, running for municipal elections, running for federal elections, and you will be surprised at, excuse me, but there's really no other word to describe it, the bullshit that I have to deal with. People tearing signs down indiscriminately. Like, I'm running in a federal election and people are taking my signs down.
Sure.
It's like, I'm trying to tell people.
Listen, that's a time-honored Canadian political tradition.
I
squads go around slashing the post.
Yeah, but I'm running against these big, massive political machines. I'm trying to at least squeeze like a slice of me just to tell people I exist as an option.
How dare you?
My ways, my way.
Because is that like? Because I mean, yes, it's censoring you, but it also could be construed as participating in the democratic process. Like, I know
It depends.
I don't know about that.
Depends who's doing the slashing. Because
I agree with that. There's a lot of nuance to this debate.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just like, we don't like Alex, we're just trying to ruin his day and cost him money, but then it's like, isn't that the way the system works, whether or not it's right? So thus,
it's shitty, but yes, I hear you.
And I'm not. Look, I don't know that I'm right on anything I'm saying on these topics, right? Like, I know my opinions can sometimes be out there, and my brain runs the way it does, but. I mean, you have the right to put up a poster. I have the right to deface your poster. And granted, I might be risking a little vandalism or something if I get caught. I don't really know if that's the case.
No,
but
if you vandalize a poster that's been put up illegally, well, that poster is illegal, and your activity is legal. It's like
if it's a legal poster, if you're putting up during a campaign,
your camp, like the people who would deface you or like put like, I know like somebody definitely. I saw a couple of defaced Trainman posters and stuff along those lines. So I assume that those things are not legal actions. But as an artist, I'm all about guerrilla protesting like that. Like, this is to me a tactful way for me to represent it's honestly what I'm saying we should do to challenge the city is very similar tactics to what we would be doing here. So like, Like, let's say the city put up a bunch of posters in support of Bill 15. An effective way to say no would be a hit piece on those posters. You know, like, and would it be censorship? Maybe. But it's also a way of being vocal when you don't have a voice.
Sure.
So that's why I'm just trying to add layers to
or
the
you could add it-
conversation.
For Alex's example, it is a little sad though that these big, as he correctly described, these massive political machines with teams that they hire professional poster installers, and they have the equipment, and they have
That's
huge
wild
teams
that they can do
they
that
have
shit.
huge teams of volunteers running around with tie wraps, and they go out the minute the clock strikes 12:01 to put those posters
Oh
up.
no, this the minute it gets dark, not 12 when it's the minute it gets dark.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
right. Until they're caught. But those aren't the ones that are being attacked. It's the Trainman guy who's angry about city
Angry.
transfers, who's like
Angry.
a one-man
No.
show.
I just like, I'm
who's
not
going
angry, I
out
just like
with his
trains.
pickup truck, putting up signs himself with a few friends. That's unfortunate. But
I agree that it's unfortunate.
he's a
but Alex,
masochist. And
But
he
I don't
loves
want to. I don't want this conversation to be about me. The point is,
Oh,
it's
really?
I'm
You
not.
with
All,
the show's called the
behind you,
Trainman
I'm not.
Report.
I'm not the one.
I'm like,
I'm
this
not
is the Trainman
I'm not the
Report.
only one who's being targeted. Talk to the conservatives. Talk to the Green Party.
You can
or
see
the
that,
NDP. It's a
any
common
Bloc
issue.
Québécois
It's a common
poster
problem.
or Parti Québécois poster that gets put up, like they called one of them a fat cow on the poster by the Legion.
Right.
Like this is the game.
I don't like that. I don't agree with that.
I am not
I'm sorry.
saying go out there and deface posters as blah blah blah, but you'll notice the CAC will do something fucking vile, and that's when the defacing happens. You'll notice that
if you're not happy with the CAC does, and there's a CAC poster, my response to
Vote.
that is I vote. But also, if I want to make that like kind of like what did you call guerrilla sabotage or whatever you want to call it, I would create my own poster with an arrow pointing up to the CAC poster and saying, whatever I want to say about it. It says, I wouldn't
I'm with
deface.
stupid type of thing.
I wouldn't deface their poster because again, I kind of feel that we need to draw that line, because if we don't, then that means that each of us individually becomes the jury, the judge, and the executioner for everybody else, and that you just can't operate that way. Who are we to make judgment statements about other people, right? So
like,
it's like
I do think
I have
that
a
there
tough
should
time
be
with it.
rules
I really
of decorum.
I really don't
but-
have much patience for it, to be honest with you.
But I promise you, you're not going to stop a 17-year-old with a marker from going to town on a
It's
poster.
not the 17-year-old I'm worried about, okay? This is not about the 17-year-old. And
That's who I would argue is most of the defacing.
I disagree. I don't think it's not 17
Okay. Y'all are like-
17-year-olds don't give a rat's ass about the
Because
train,
I've
man.
seen it up close. Yeah.
They don't care about me. Trust me.
I can see how the people targeting Alex are not 17-year-olds, but the people
you're
that
right,
are targeting
you're
the
right.
CAC are absolutely
There's the
17-year-olds.
Alex, special anti-Alex demographic. Yes, there's something to be said.
I've heard about that before, and I'm like, yeah, are we talking about the same
Hey,
Alex?
I love everybody, okay? I love you
I'm
all.
like, I could see how you misconstrue what he says.
I really do. I do.
But I think like at the end of the day, the real takeaway is that it shouldn't be the city reacting on 3 complaints. Now, if the people want to go to town attacking each other's posters, that's a whole other conversation. But I think we can all agree that the city maybe shouldn't respond to 3 complaints as a means of removing anything.
When the city, I hear what you're saying, but when the city has a bylaw and people complain, they have to act.
Is it like one complaint? Like you get one complaint?
Well, Plant said, listen, from time to time we go and we take down the bills for the posters for guitar lessons, or someone lost their cat. We do it and sometimes we don't. He says, but this, because of the quantity of the posters and that we did get some complaints, we had to act. But what was interesting is a citizen who filmed a city employee in the process of taking it down, asked, why are you taking this down? First of all, the employee was very confused about what the posters were about to begin with and gave some inane explanation. But then when pressed, actually responded that we got complaints that kids saw them and were afraid. So that's what that employee, that blue collar worker, told a citizen, when it's been explained through other channels that citizens complained that it's illegal and it shouldn't be there. So
Yeah,
I'll leave
there's a
that
lot
for
of
you
there's a
to
lot of
figure
value
out.
judgments being made. You see, this is where I get really
It's a
uncomfortable.
cultural
Really,
disconnect.
I get really uncomfortable really fast because
Come
when
try that in Hampstead. You're going to leave with $1,000 fine.
yeah,
And the money's going to go to Israel.
Hampstead is the reverse situation. Like I found that all very bizarre. I said, okay, you're gonna get fined $1,000 for removing the hostage sign. What
Because
happens?
they're authorized.
What happened?
Authorized.
Oh, they were authorized.
They're authorizing them.
They were authorized. Yeah, but did they give them formal council or authorization to put the posters on?
Council's authorizing them, and council's authorizing the fines.
Okay, so they're allowed. They made
So
them
hold on.
legal.
Hampstead
But they're
has
making
said
a
that
va-
if you remove the poster,
If
you're going
caught
to get a fine.
Removing
That's
a
correct.
poster,
That's
there's a
right.
bylaw. You will be fined $1,000.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah, but it's more than
and
that.
we're talking
According to
about
Joel,
like you cross a street and now it's illegal. You cross a street
You're
and
going
now it's.
into a different city.
yeah, it's.
I mean, I know that literally, like how it
Yeah, but
plays out.
that's the thing about living in different cities. I mean, in Côte Saint Luc, you can't park overnight.
Yeah, but there's a nuance here about Hampstead.
Tempo. You
There's-
can't do this. You can't
Yeah, but
do that.
there's a nuance about the Hampstead situation, if I may, and confirm this, Joel. It's not only is it illegal to tear them down, you get a fine for $1,000, but the council has made them legal, right?
But the council, what? I'm sorry.
Has made those posters legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's two because we have a bylaw.
Listen, I can go find the bylaw and look into the technicalities of it, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
Because in CDNEG, the bylaw says that you can't post on public furniture. It doesn't say what kind of poster.
So it's just illegal for me to go put up a poster anywhere in NDG right now to advertise for anything.
Anything. That's
So
correct.
I should
on
not
public
be
property.
putting up posters
on a
with-
pole.
Well, no, because when I had a big run-in
or
when I had the big run-in with the city, right? One of the arguments I made in front of the courts is that in the bylaw it says that you're allowed, or you're not allowed to put signs up in the borough except for a purpose, an area designed for that purpose, which was they call the BBL, the affichage libre, right? And you see them in CDNEG.
Public posting space.
Right.
They should, which I'm glad you brought up because I think we should have more of those. I think we should have a
the
lot
reason
more.
why they're there, right?
So like there's just
15
designated
years ago, it's because of
boards.
me.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I that was one of the arguments I used to
big
say
enough, large enough that you could post the hell out of
exactly.
stuff with it. And people
there.
come and stop and look at it.
Yeah, but there's not
I
enough
cannot
of
tell
them.
you where one of them is right now. Don't have any.
Oh,
I couldn't tell you.
Look for them. They're around. But then I posted on those. I posted on those vehicles, and the ironic thing is that people took down my signs down from there too.
But that was you're doing what in St. Leonard there's a tradition of keeping. If you drive around St. Leonard in winter, God bless that world.
God bless St. Leonard.
I lived there for 8 years. If you drive around and you look in all the tempos, you'll see they're all shorn up by those corrugated with an abundance of corrugated public election posters going back to like when Mulroney was prime minister. Like nothing is wasted.
I collect those. So if anybody has those lying around, being the half Italian I am, please reach out to me because I will take them off your hands. They're good construction materials.
For the garden too? Or?
No. Yeah, that's right. for the tomatoes. Yeah, so that wow, that was an interesting conversation on posters. Did we get any feedback online about that, or anybody had any comments?
Actually, we did get one comment from Steve Novak. I don't know if you're still with us, Steve, but shout out you for riding with us for a significant chunk of time because I appreciate that. I'll rather have 3 people sit with us for an hour and a half than have like 100 views that are there for 3 seconds. But would it be okay for people to put up posters of bombed out Gaza and dead children, or if you're vegan to put up posters of lambs having their throats slit? Many people feel that these people are victimizing.
What about?
I know. We're just reading the comment.
Just put them up, man. Put up the posters. Put them up. Do what you want.
It is a free country.
That's how you want to express yourself.
It is a free country.
I'll express myself by putting up a picture of a child who was snatched from the arms of her dead parents. And you can put up a picture of bombed out homes and dead people. That's fine. But I'm probably not going to rip yours off. That's the difference.
To be fair,
yes.
It was reported that
agree.
People were also ripping down the Hamas, they were ripping down the other side. I know you said there's no other side. They were ripping down the posters of dead babies and
I
rubbles
can
and
see
shit.
Joel perked up there a bit.
I was trying to like.
I would like. I would like to get this because nor am I going to debate if the Earth is flat. But what I'd like to say is, what is interesting is that cities choose to apply the bylaws they want, and I think you guys can explore maybe in the future is ragweed is a big issue as well.
Yes.
Because there's bylaws on the books, and ragweeds is one of the easiest things to deal with. It's called mowing your lawn, and yet on city property, you literally need a friggin' machete to get through some ragweed, and school board properties as well, I'm told. So
it's hilarious.
All a matter of degree.
It's hilarious how city properties are violating their own bylaws in so many different ways.
All 311 complain. There you do a guerrilla. There you do some guerrilla gardening.
And it's
I know it sounds ridiculous, but I love that. Like I like
what?
It's an actionable thing you can do, because I've seen complaints about why don't they mow the lawns. I'm like, okay, call 311 and complain. If 100 people call 311 and complain, they're gonna respond differently. Apparently 3 people's enough to get a poster taken down. Or so
there are people who get harassed by inspectors because their shrubs are a few inches too high near the corner, or they didn't, they need to clean up their lawn a bit. But a city can have, a 10 square meter piece of land against the sidewalk with literally 3 feet high shrubs of ragweed, which if you're a ragweed allergy sufferer, it's
a big deal.
The devil
it's a big deal. Yeah. No, I know. Joel, you're preaching to the choir, of course. I've
never thought about ragweed. See, this is why
you don't have the allergy, right?
Like even
Walkley, I mean, I do. I've just never thought about it because this is why I got into this type of things, because of nobody ever talks about regular local city stuff unless you're a homeowning parent. That's the only demographic that really cares and talks about it.
I don't know if I brought this up on the air or before when we were talking. Is that I think it doesn't all have to be Bill 15 or posters or war or controversy or taxes. Dog shit and potholes matter.
They do.
I agree.
Who's filling them? Who's complaining? How much money is being collected of it? You step out your door, everything you touch is affected by municipal policies, by enforcement, lack of enforcement. And if you're expected to be, cleaner than clean, but the city isn't, well, no wonder people get pissed off.
Yeah,
and I think
that
if you can call 311 and complain.
They need to get upset.
But that's the action point, right? Like people need to know, here's what you can do next. Otherwise, I think what a lot of us do is we just hear the complaints and go, it's the way it is.
I made an access information request for the 311.
It's not the way it is, and it's the
not.
Perception.
That's no. I'm
agreeing, but that's the mentality. I hear it. I literally hear it all the time, especially from people about 10 years older than me. That's where I hear it the most from.
That's apathy that kills us. That destroys the community.
I was, because like you start asking questions like, yo, why do people care about my haircut? Like, let's actually ask that question. If you guys think that you can have long hair in corporate America and people love it, I can tell you it's all the guys who are forced to cut their hair are mad that I don't have to cut my hair.
I had a chance and I blew it.
Holden, all I have is envy, really. I really do.
Don't worry, I got based on my family's genetics, I got about 5 years left, and then it's the bald spot.
Downhill, man.
I had beautiful curvy hair at one point. I didn't have to do the Trainman thing. I was gorgeous by myself. It's all lost now.
Don't worry, it's coming quick. This is all. I'm not as young as people think.
Gone.
It's a blessing that people think I'm as young as they do, but it's not that. I have to stretch and care about my health now, and
yeah. When you hit 40, the eyesight gets even worse. It goes exponentially drops.
That's what I've heard.
And to wrap this all up, Joel, we're trying to build something here, right? So I really want to sincerely thank you for joining us and participating.
Yeah, sure.
You added a lot. And
listen, I speak for myself. I don't speak for the Suburban or any of its affiliates or subsidiaries. If you have these symptoms, check with your doctor.
I I really sincerely, Holden, do I speak for you as well?
Yeah, no,
really
I mean,
hope-
I appreciate it too, because for me,
Anytime,
it's like
man.
people like you add validity points to it, because I'm otherwise going to be perceived as an annoying person who trolls sometimes in Thrive NEG, and Alex
that's
has
not
his
perception, it's my
reputation.
reality.
So the idea is to actually connect with people who are doing things, and like we got Mauro Pena who's going to come jump on the show, because I
Yeah.
mean right now he's running Thrive NDG, so he seems like a relevant
he
figurehead.
He ran with Ballarat homeless mass election. Yeah,
Either. Anyway,
I
What's
missed
that?
that. I missed.
he
Repeat
doesn't
that.
live in NDG either. I know, because I've been to his spot in the fucking Fatal Lofts.
Yeah, but he lives in
All of-
Snowden.
But no,
Snowden-
no. Oh, he's moving. No, he doesn't. He lives in the Fatal Lofts, and maybe he's moving now. But I know where Mauro lives. I've
Where's
been to his crib.
where are the Fatal Lofts? I don't even know where that is.
Saint Remy Street. It's in the southwest.
He lives in Sudwest.
Yeah, technically, it's not DG. It's in the Saint Henri area.
No,
I know. That's why I think it's so amazing. The guy who's like currently spearheading Thrive NDG doesn't even live in NDG. All up tomorrow, though.
Mauro Pena is a mensch. You should have him on.
I love the guy. He's a good.
He's a nice guy.
He's a guy, and we
he has a
like
great
friends
dog.
outside of this. We're
Yeah.
friends outside of like all of it. That's why I feel comfortable talking shit about him.
Getting back to Joel, I always mess this up with the orientation. It's messy, man. But Joel,
Get used to it.
again, back on the appreciation trip. I
It doesn't mean I'm going to write glowing things about you.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not.
You
looking
could write
for that.
all the hateful stuff
Holden
too.
and I,
Just write about
Holden
us.
and I would love to have you on again, and hopefully, we get traction and more people are watching. And
As you like.
I thank you so much, sir.
Make it so, number one.
Thank you so much. You're very
Love
kind.
it.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, and appreciate everyone who watched. I'm not surprised that we don't have as many people this deep into the episode as the beginning, but people will come back, and it was really cool how many of you checked out the episode after the fact last time. We're gonna keep doing this because we think it's really important to talk about local stuff. Like, you can't just talk about it for a year in an election cycle and forget about it for 3 years. If we want to have real community change, there has to be real efforts from the people in the community trying to create platforms, and everybody whines about a lack of English media, so here we are trying.
And Joel, awesome report for
Thursday,
Suburban.
there's the bike path.
Yeah, Thursday.
Shindig, and next week, next week there's a council meeting.
Yeah,
4th, I think. So lots of
I have to
stuff
look it
coming
up.
So
Lots of stuff. Yeah,
Amazing. And also, if you're watching this, let us know your questions, the comments. Let us know what you want to talk about, because we might, stick to whatever topics we encounter or we care about. But as a community show, it would be really interesting to see what NDG cares about. If we want to talk about grocery stores, we can talk about that. I know it's a hot topic. I want to talk about the hot topics here because that's what it's about, and we can explore them and further. On that note, we do appreciate everyone from the lives, all of you in the future. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. We're going to evolve the show and get more of the good stuff. Inevitably, you're going to hear them Patreon plugs. In the meantime, we're not there yet, but we appreciate it again, and live long and prosper, everyone.
be on time or people will die.
Hey, my cat didn't puke.